Hello and welcome to Anime Memories, and on this episode, I'm going to be talking about Serial Experiments Lain. When I was young, the only way I could watch anime is by renting it from a video store. There wasn't much of a selection, but I did get introduced to a few classic anime that way. I remember renting Akira, Ghost in the Shell, and this is also how I came into contact with Lain. As a 13-year-old watching it for the first time, I was so confused. I had no idea what was going on. So now as an adult, honestly, I still don't have a good idea what's going on. If you're looking for an extremely deep analytical review, you're not going to find it here. However, I am going to be explaining how Lain can still be enjoyable, even if you only look at it on a surface level. The story begins on a very heavy note with a young girl committing suicide. Shortly after her death, many students in her class start getting emails from her, and one of those students is an introvert named Lain. This leads into a psychological journey where Lain encounters this group of hackers called the Knights, some weird secret agent guys, and an online world called the Wired. Now that synopsis doesn't do the best job of describing what Lain is. It would be impossible to try and sum up such a complex plot in just one paragraph. This is one of those shows that you start watching and you think you know where it's heading, but then it takes a hard right down mindfuck avenue when you quickly realise that you're completely lost. I was able to understand the story on a very basic level. However, I'm sure that there are a ton of little things in the visuals and the dialogue that are meant to convey some kind of greater message. For the most part though, I have no idea what those messages are. In order to truly experience everything that Lain has to offer, it requires that you pay attention to all the little details that most people would normally just skip over. And while I only have a limited understanding of this show, I was able to pick up on a few things. One of the themes in here is our over-reliance on technology. I can't remember who pointed this out, but there was this one reviewer who mentioned that Lain's computer grows substantially over the course of the anime. It's one of those visual details that's meant to convey a message, and I think the message here is that technology can very easily consume your life, if you let it. It's interesting. This is probably more relevant today than it was back in the 90s when this show was made. I remember hearing a story about this experiment where university students tried to go 1 week without their phone, and many of them struggled to function. They literally could not complete their normal routine without a piece of machinery to tell them what to do. That's kinda scary. Another theme is that as people, we don't care about others as much as we should.
Mom?
Yes?
I got an email from a friend today. It was from this girl I know who killed herself last week.
Wow, you look really concerned for your daughter's well-being. I mean, look at that face. Pure worry right there. It's an issue that, again, is probably more relevant today. Over time, the human race just seems to be getting more and more selfish. And I think that many of the characters in here were intentionally made to reflect that. I wouldn't necessarily call them bad people. They're just very self-centered and they rarely go out of their way to help someone if there's no benefit for them. Now there are exceptions. Lain often receives help from her hacker friends, and there are quite a few people at her school that seem to care about her. The biggest exception to this would have to be Lain's classmate, Alice. She seems to be genuinely trying to make friends with Lain. Whether it's out of pity or intrigue, I'm not too sure, but her intentions seem pure and I greatly respect that. Lain herself begins as an emotionally stunted introvert. She doesn't interact with the people around her, she always has this blank look on her face. You know, the fairly typical Kudere behaviours. But it doesn't take you very long to realise that Lain is clearly something else. She isn't just your standard shy girl. And I wish I could go further into it, but to avoid spoilers, all I will say is that she changes significantly by the end. When it comes to the visuals, they are just as insane as the story. There are so many shots with weird colour schemes and surreal imagery that I feel like every single scene has some kind of deeper meaning. For example, the bleeding wires here are obviously meant to symbolise something. I just have no idea what that is. Now, being that this was made back in 1998, the art and animation are very dated. So if you're used to more modern anime, this may be difficult to sit through. I personally didn't have too many problems with the visuals. The biggest issue I found is that the background characters are usually not very well defined. They look like these skin-coloured blobs. Although, even if the outdated visuals drag the anime down a bit, the rest of the elements help raise it back up again. One of these elements is the sound design, which is straight up amazing. In the first 5 minutes, I was able to understand that the setting was this dark and disturbing place, almost solely because of the ambient noise they used. The music is also fantastic at setting the tone. It keeps you feeling uncomfortable and makes you think that there's something horrendous just looming over everybody. The last thing to talk about in the sound department is the dub, and it's really hard for me to evaluate. I'm not sure if the voice actors were intentionally trying to be stilted in order to further accentuate the unsettling atmosphere, or if they just straight up can't act. With Lain, it's obvious that her delivery was meant to be wooden because it fits with her personality, but almost every single character speaks in this monotone, awkward manner. Even the characters that are meant to be charismatic talk like that.
Let us see! Let us see! Come on, don't be a baby. Let me see it! Stop that, Reika. Come on, give it back to her.
So like with many anime from the 90s, I would say that the subtitled version is superior. Serial Experiments Lain is truly a classic. Back in the day, it opened people's eyes to what anime was capable of. So, if you have any interest in checking out landmark titles from anime's past, this should definitely be on your radar. So anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you have any feedback, feel free to leave a comment, and if you like this video and want to see more, feel free to subscribe as well. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.